know. It's a unique set of circumstances. It's really relationships. So I knew the partner. I knew Nathan Wade. I knew Nathan Wade personally. I knew Fani Willis personally. And I also knew their friends and law partners, their former friends and law partners. And so in the legal community, we were talking about this, and they divulged all of this information to me. And I just sort of started tracking it down and closing different loops and investigating. And it blossomed into something that I knew I had to do something about.
Now that Trump's getting into office, it seems like things are being rolled back. And as we found out yesterday, now they're going to be able to subpoena Fani Willis. Is she going to respond and show up? We don't know. Check it out.
Well, tonight, a judge has ruled that Georgia's state Senate can subpoena Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis as part of an inquiry into potential misconduct during her prosecution of former President Donald Trump, now President-elect Donald Trump. A Fulton County Superior Court judge gave Willis until January 13th to argue whether the subpoenas are overly broad or seek confidential information.
Nope.
The Senate committee, led by Republicans, has been investigating allegations of misconduct, focusing on Willis's hiring of special prosecutor Nathan Wade, who she had a romantic relationship with. 11 Alive spoke with former assistant Fulton County DA Daryl Cohen this afternoon, and he says that the legal battle over this issue is just getting started.
I believe that they have to go to the Court of Appeals, which, when they rule, can also be appealed to the Supreme Court. And all of this will condense. It seems like it's going to be forever, but at some point it's going to condense.
And a lawyer for Willis tells the Associated Press that she plans to appeal this decision with the Georgia Supreme Court, in part because some of the documentation she's been asked to turn over to the Senate are confidential and could possibly compromise the election interference case.
Yeah, so nobody cares about that because she's about to get it. She's about to get it. Oh, hold on a second. Ooh, did not mean to play that. So now we have news this morning that the Attorney General just came out and is saying that he wants the Supreme Court to reject Fani Willis's request. It's getting bad, y'all. Now, we're going to talk about Chris Carr a little bit later. He's the current Attorney General here in Georgia, and he's actually going to run for governor coming up next year, or in the next 2 years, excuse me. But we're going to get into that a little bit later. Check out this article from Fox 5. It says AG Carr urges the state Supreme Court to reject DA Willis's appeal in the Trump case. Here we go. Georgia's Attorney General Chris Carr is urging the Supreme Court of Georgia not to take up an appeal by Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis in her attempt to prosecute President-elect Donald Trump and his allies in the Georgia election interference case. And there were 19 other people indicted in this case as well. Again, we'll get to that in another video a little bit later. Carr, who announced in November that he plans to run for governor, posted the statement on his X account reading, "The Georgia Court of Appeals has ruled that the Fulton County DA created her own conflict and rightfully removed her from the case against President-elect Trump. Lawfare has become far too common in American politics, and it must end. As such, I would encourage the Georgia Supreme Court to not take her appeal. It is our hope that the DA will now focus taxpayer resources on the successful prosecution of violent criminals in Fulton County." Yo, we've been saying this, and shout out to AG Chris Carr. All this money that she spent and wasted in this YSL trial, all the money that was spent and wasted on the Trump trial, all the money that was spent and wasted on Fani Willis's vacations with Nathan Wade. I mean, she paid this man, what, $700,000? Needs to stop, and she needs to be held accountable because I want a refund. All right, and here's his official statement that we just read here, and you guys can follow Chris Carr over on X. He also has a YouTube channel as well. Doesn't post as much, but he might be posting a lot more often since he's running for governor soon. The case against Trump and more than a dozen others has already been largely stalled for months while the Georgia Court of Appeals considered the pre-trial appeal. Earlier this month, the 3-judge panel voted in a 2-1 to disqualify Willis from the case, and she was not happy about it. But you know who was happy about it? They're calling her YSL Barbie. Ashley Merchant actually got a chance and an opportunity to speak on this with Fox News. We're going to check it out here in a second. She's going to give her take on what went down and why she's finally thankful that this is happening. All her hard work is paying off.
Hey,
oh, of course, we got to add. My bad, y'all. We'll get into it here in a second. Also, just to give y'all a little bit of background on Chris Carr, too, while we wait for this to load. And shout out to, I think it was 11 Alive for this.
And tonight, Georgia's 2026 race for governor has its very first candidate. Today, Attorney General Chris Carr announced his bid to become the state's leader. Carr is the first major candidate from any party to announce a run for governor. Carr says that he's ready to build on Georgia's success, making the state an even better place to work, raise a family, and grow businesses.
Yep. So Chris Carr, he's going to be running. If y'all are in Fulton County or in Georgia in general, make sure you look up and find out more information about Chris Carr. We'll be talking about him a little bit later.
Well, President-elect Donald Trump's final legal battle is likely over after a Georgia appeals court disqualified Fulton County DA Fani Willis and her team from Trump election interference case. That one, remember? The court writing, an appearance of impropriety generally is not enough to support disqualification. This is the rare case in which disqualification is mandated and no other remedy will suffice to restore public confidence in the integrity of these proceedings. Attorney Ashley Merchant led the effort to oust Willis from the case, and she joins us right now. Ashley, good morning to you.
Single-handedly ruined this lady's career.
Okay, so if you would, just let's start at the beginning. Explain how you had knowledge that nobody else had that Nathan Wade was having a relationship with the DA, Fani Willis, who hired him.
I know. It's a unique set of circumstances. It's really relationships. So I knew the partner. I knew Nathan Wade. I knew Nathan Wade personally. I knew Fani Willis personally. And I also knew their friends and law partners, their former friends and law partners. And so in the legal community, we were talking about this and they divulged all of this information to me. And I just sort of started tracking it down and closing different loops and investigating. And it blossomed into something that I knew I had to do something about and became actionable.
Yeah, right. And we saw it play out, months ago where the judge in the case was trying to figure out, is there a conflict of interest here? It was so obvious there was. And the irony is the case of the conflict of interest was so much stronger, actually, than the case against Donald Trump.
I know. It really was. I mean, it was something that you couldn't turn your eye away from. And I think that's what the Court of Appeals said. This is just, it's one of those things that you know it when you see it. It's the appearance of impropriety. It is so great that it had to be enough to kick them off the case. And I think it's clear, how Fani Willis has dug in from the beginning. She started this and, she could have done the right thing early on whenever we brought this to everyone's attention and said, hey, let's have a neutral prosecutor handle this case. Let's have someone else look at it. But I think she was terrified because her case is so weak. She didn't want to have someone look at it.
And in fact, she has been saying, up until the bitter end, she would go ahead and wait until the end of the Trump term to bring this case if necessary. Donald Trump had a statement to Fox News Digital. He said, there is no way such corrupt people can lead a case and then gets taken over by somebody else. The case is entirely dead. Everybody should receive an apology, including those wonderful patriots who have been caught up in this for years.
Yeah, and can we get a refund too? I mean, that's what we really want here in Fulton County. Also, I want to ask y'all about this. How much of this turn of events do you think is because Donald Trump is now the president-elect? Because it really changes everything for Fani Willis, specifically in this case, because a lot of it with him being the president would go away anyway. So I want to know, y'all let me know in the comments of this video, how much of it do you think is because Trump is now getting into office, or is it actually because the Court of Appeals said, yeah, Ashley Merchant was right. We need to get Fani out of here. Yeah, let me get that refund.
That's what he says. The Wall Street Journal today, Ashley says, a smart move for Georgia would be to end this, drop the case that never should have been brought. But technically, they could keep it alive. It's really up to the state, right?
Right. It's up to a group called Prosecuting Attorneys Council, PAC. It's an independent prosecuting agency. They can decide what to do. But Burt Jones was early, who's our lieutenant governor in Georgia. He was taken off the case early. He was separated out, and Fani Willis was disqualified.
Right.
And when they looked at that, they said, we're not going to prosecute this. So I think I've always thought if a neutral prosecutor, someone who didn't have a financial interest in this case and a political interest in this case, looked at it, that they would see things differently, and they would decide that the taxpayers, the courts, the people who are charged
both.
Case, they deserve this case to be dismissed.
Well, congratulations to you. This was what you were after. You really cracked the case, so Christmas came early for you.
It did come early. Thank you so much.
You bet. Ashley, thank you very much.
Huge win for Ashley Merchant, and congratulations again. I want to read this article from the AJC. They talk a little bit more into detail, not only about Chris Carr, but interestingly enough, Fani Willis somehow found the time to respond to what Chris Carr said, but she can't show up to hearings that she's subpoenaed for. She's just letting everything fall apart when it comes to this case in the YSL trial. This is wild. Check out what Fani Willis had to say about this. Georgia's Attorney General Chris Carr pressed the state's top court Monday to disregard an appeal that could breathe new life into Fulton County's election interference case against President-elect Donald Trump and his allies. Carr, a Republican candidate for governor, told the AJC that the state Court of Appeals rightfully disqualified District Attorney Fani Willis and her office from pursuing racketeering charges against Trump and 14 co-defendants. And then we have a statement here again. Lawfare has become far too common in American politics and must end, Carr said. As such, I would encourage the Georgia Supreme Court to take her appeal. Now, his stance was quickly seconded by Governor Brian Kemp. Man, Fani Willis is in trouble. She has the whole state of Georgia against her right now. Although Fulton County still voted her in somehow. I don't know. Brian Kemp, a political ally who said Georgians deserve safe communities and partisan politics out of our courtrooms. Oh my gosh. It also brought an immediate rebuke from Willis, who accused him of being more focused on the politics of the 2026 Republican primary rather than the law. Carr is the head of an office that provides legal counsel to Georgia's executive branch and prosecutes violent crimes across the state. But he has no power over what cases the Georgia Supreme Court takes up. He does have some influence there. I think we could all agree in that. Still, his statement is his latest effort to build support among Trump allies ahead of what's expected to be a fierce GOP primary battle to succeed Governor Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp cannot run again. This is his second term. Who cannot? Oh, okay. Yep. There we go. Who cannot seek a third term. Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, a key Trump ally who was probed by Willis's grand jury, is among Carr's expected rivals for the party's nomination. And Jones wasted little time in slamming Carr for waiting so long to speak up, and said the state Senate will investigate Willis's use of public funds. There again, they're going after this lady. I've said for years that Fani Willis orchestrated a political charade against President Trump, he said on X. When he had opportunities to lead, our attorney general was missing in action. Where he failed, the Georgia Senate won't, Jones said. We look forward to holding her accountable at a future hearing. Shout out to our guy, Mr. Jones, man. I love to see this. Carr has been more muted than other GOP leaders in his criticism of Willis's probe, partially because he was subpoenaed to testify in the investigation and could be called as a witness at trial. It's probably best for him to stay out of it. I agree. Shortly after the appellate court's ruling disqualified Willis over her one-time romantic relationship with former special prosecutor in this case, Nathan Wade, as we know, Carr broadly panned what he described as political prosecutions in an interview with AJC's Politically Georgia without taking direct aim at Willis. So now it's open season on Fani Willis, apparently. One of the things we need to do in politics is stay in our lane, Carr said, adding, I would just suggest it is not going to serve our nation well if we go after our political enemies if we don't like what they've done, if in office or not. But Carr sharpened his stance on Monday with a statement that called for Willis to focus taxpayers' resources on successful prosecution of violent crimes in Fulton County. He's playing the political game. I can't be mad at it. It's all a part of the game they have to play. It's not immediately clear how soon Georgia's Supreme Court could decide whether to take up the case, though legal experts say the process could take weeks or months. If the appeals court ruling stands, jurisdiction over the Trump case will shift to a nonpartisan state agency known as the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia, which would decide who to assign it to next. No one's going to take this case. I'm telling y'all. So they might as well just drop the whole thing. But only a handful of local offices have the resources to take on such a complex case. And it's not clear whether there are other prosecutors who would raise their hands to take on such a controversial matter. Nope. As for Willis, her statement was a rare public comment since the appeal court's ruling a week ago. She described Carr as a witness in the case he is trying to influence and accusing him of playing politics. It's not illegal. If Mr. Carr cannot separate his ambitions to become governor from his duties as attorney general, Fani Willis said, he should resign and focus on being a full-time candidate rather than serving as a constitutional officer sworn to uphold the Constitution and laws of the United States and Georgia. Man, Fani Willis has had enough. But as we know, everyone who's on the side that wants to see justice in this instance is absolutely loving this. Ashley Merchant, even after her interview with Fox and Friends, went on X to say this. So Fani Willis is too busy to respond to a lawful Senate subpoena or open records lawsuit, both failures costing taxpayers lots of money, but can respond quickly to a comment by the Georgia's Attorney General. If she had paid the same attention she did to Attorney General Carr's statement as she did to actually investigating the YSL trial or managing her office, maybe taxpayers wouldn't have wasted so much money on her media projects. Wow. That's tough. And here's the statement here from Fani Willis. We already read that. We, of course, have more people speaking out about this. Steve Sadow, we know who Steve Sadow is, says DA Willis's knee-jerk response to Attorney General Carr's powerful statement is vintage Willis. She pays her hand-picked prosecutor lover nearly $1 million, attempts to conceal her intimate relationship from the citizens of Georgia until exposed in emotion, blatantly attempts to paint the accused as racist in a speech in a historic Atlanta black church upon being exposed, and her overall conduct and testimony in court give rise to the trial finding an odor of mendacity. But she wants Attorney General Carr to resign for telling truths, simply dumbfounding. And then, of course, we got Uncle Doug up in here, had to speak on it as well, giving some praise to Ashley Merchant and Steve Sadow. He said, well said. Her judgment and lack of prosecutorial direction do a disservice to the people of Fulton County. The taxpayers of Fulton County deserve a DA who will focus on effectively prosecuting crimes and not their own political ambitions and personal financial gain, which that seems to be her main focus. She is losing good prosecutors from Fulton, and those that remain deserve sound leadership and support. No prosecutor should be forced into a position of having to go into court to defend her unserious actions. Yeah, Abadi's over there sweating, man. Y'all know Abadi is, it seems like he's Fanny's right-hand man right now. And I'm sure he's about to get put to work. I feel bad for the guy. Doug Weinstein made a video about it over on TikTok as well. Y'all check out what he had to say here.
So, I'm sorry if I'm a bit flabbergasted.
Oh, we all are.
Madam DA Fani Willis, this statement she puts out about Chris Carr is really astounding.
But not surprising.
Saying that he is more focused on politics than the law. This is coming from an individual who appoints their lover to lead a prosecution of a former president of the United States on extraordinarily serious charges, thus completely blowing any chance of a successful prosecution of that case, assuming that it even had merit.
That's true.
And on top of which is totally absurdly prosecuting the YSL music label. I just don't even know what to say. To say that Chris Carr is being political when clearly Madam DA Fani Willis is unbelievably political in going after the former president, presumably for Democratic votes, going after YSL, presumably for Republican votes, in what is clearly some attempt at gaining higher office. This is a ridiculous response, and the people of Fulton County deserve a DA who will focus on them, the people, and not their own political careers.
Yeah, and with Fani Willis, we know that's not going to happen. She hasn't been accountable for anything. She's played the victim this entire time. You saw mentioned by Steve Sadow, she went to a church while the trial was ongoing, which is prosecutorial misconduct 101, and was talking about and insinuating certain things, not only about future President Donald Trump, but she was talking about how she was being persecuted and how God took her on a mission. And that's why she was here, as she was paying her boyfriend almost $1 million and going on vacations. And this is just bad. And man, Fani Willis, she's got a lot she's going to answer for, because it seems like no one's out on her side at this point. Even Doug Weinstein, who is actually in Fulton County and knows what's going on behind the scenes in the DA's office, he sees that people are leaving. She's losing people. What do y'all think is going to happen? Let me know in the comments and in the chat. It's about to get wild for Fani Willis.